Guys, welcome to Irish medieval history. First off, I just want to apologize for the standard and quality of this video before I start. I actually spent a whole day making this video, editing it. I spent 2 days doing it actually, and by magic my computer just decided it was going to delete this and the whole script. All of it just magically disappeared, and I spent the last 3 hours now looking for the script, looking for the video, couldn't find any of it. And yeah, I'm just, because I don't really have the time to go and do all the editing, doing up all this video, I'm just basically going to tell you what happened, what was it, about 2 weeks ago now, where St. Michan's Church up in Dublin, it's just behind the forecourts, the crypt was set on fire.
Well, it's disastrous for Dublin. It's disastrous for history, and it's disastrous for the parish. We have the parish depends on income from our tourists, and if we've no crypts to show people the various things that are down under the ground, then we have very little money coming in, and we're not sure now what's going to happen, because I'm going to try and get in touch with the National Museum tomorrow, and hopefully they might be able to take the mummified bodies away. And by doing that, then they'll may be able to salvage something, but we're really pretty certain that they've been destroyed.
So damage beyond repair, do you fear?
Beyond repair, I would say, yes. Yeah.
We are in a place that is holy. We are talking about people who once walked the earth as we do as human beings, and the irreversible loss, I think, is something that will sadden generations, not only of people of Dublin and school groups, but international visitors who make a point of coming to St. Michan's when they come to Dublin, because they experience something unique. It's partly got to do with the climate, it's partly got to do with the conservation, but the fact that people who were part of the Crusades were buried here, and now it seems that that option will not be open for them.
Now, I can't go into details of why, because it's, politics, and if I go too into politics these days, I could end up having my channel red flagged and all that crazy stuff. So I can't really go into the politics of that. And also, furthermore, there's also more damage happening over in England this week. I'll show you a video of that, but I won't go into detail of.
Two Just Stop Oil activists have desecrated Stonehenge with orange powder paint. You know what they should do next is they should blow up an animal shelter to protest oil. To do the insanity? Well, here's the problem, is that these people do it because there's nothing that's going to happen to them, right? They're going to get a fine. I say throw them in jail for 20 years. You're desecrating a historical monument intentionally. The problem is that all of the people do this because they know they can get away with it. Didn't ISIS destroy Monument? Yeah. And also I found this to be funny. Just Stop Oil, or 100% a PSYOP funded by Big Oil to turn the entire public against climate activism. I've said this same exact fucking thing. It's like, how can you be this obnoxious and this annoying? Yeah, it's so crazy.
Regardless, because of the political sensitive stuff that's going on right now, is that the right terminology to use? I'm not sure. But basically, what's happening in the world right now is really affecting history, because people are going out there and vandalizing historical sites for their own political attention. And since, 2015 in Ireland, we've had the economic crisis, which has led to the increase in vandalism of historical sites, sadly. Now, I'm not telling you to go there and defend historical sites. I'm not telling you to do anything, in fact, but I am just highlighting this political is it correct to say political problem that we have right now? I don't know the right terminology to use on that, Regardless, I just want to talk about Michan's church. To start with, Michan's church has a lot of early modern and modern history. But for this channel, Irish Medieval History, basically today I want to go in depth, talk a little bit about St. Michan's church. And of course, I went off and I wrote an entire script which magically disappeared. Just about to start, magically disappeared. So I don't even have really a script to work in front of. So I'm really fluking what I'm saying. But, not as all is lost. Myself and Primal Ireland actually went off and made a few videos beforehand, and I'll make sure to link all of that above. And so myself and Primal Ireland have already done a good bit of work, and you can go back and watch those videos. But basically, between the jigs and the reels, there was actually a fire in the crypt, specifically on the medieval side. And it was one of the medieval crusaders, originally a Irish Viking called an Ustaman, who was set on fire. Sadly, this isn't the first time he's been attacked. Back a few years ago, he had his head cut off and his head was removed. It went missing for a while, but it was rescued and brought back to the crypt, and his head was put back on again.
It's been a relief to have it back restored the way it is now, and more of a relief to say that the Crusader is now finally back in his resting place, and the church, the vaults have been reconsecrated by the Archbishop. So that's important for me to know that these people who were disturbed are now finally resting in peace once again.
So as people go down, they will look into the vault that contains the mummies, and centred in the vault is the Crusader with his head back with him, thankfully. And then beside him to the right we have it's commonly called the thief. And the reason he's called that was because he's lost his hand. And at the time that would have been a punishment for stealing. Now he's probably quite high status because he was buried in the crypt, so perhaps maybe he became a priest or something after that. On the other side then we have a gentleman who was just laid out in one of our other crypts, who is alleged to have been buried alive. So he dates probably about 350 years. So he's been put into a new coffin, and he now rests on the left-hand side. And then there's other remains then of another mummy. We're not sure as to the origin. We don't have complete records for all of our remains, unfortunately.
Nobody wants to go through this again, no matter where you are. And yes, we have extra security, we've extra locks, we've extra gates, we've extra CCTV. And I think that's all you can do to a certain extent, because if somebody wants to do something, they'll break in regardless. They can break into a bank, they can break into Fort Knox, they can break anywhere. If they're determined to do it, they'll do it. But all we can do is put as much security in place as we can. It's been costly, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. I think the fact that everything is back to normal, so to speak, means that the local community can take pride in the place once again. The people of Dublin have their heritage back, and then internationally and nationally, visitors from all over the world can experience something very unique that is, you've seen for yourself. It's very unique down there, and I think it's good that people can experience all that.
So that was good until people went and decided they were going to permanently damage it by setting it on fire. So that caused permanent damage to the Crusader, sadly, which was very bad, of course. We're waiting for more news to come out, but it seems like so far that it's the damage that has been done is irreversible compared to the previous damage. So that's really sad to hear, especially when we still have so much more research to do on the body of the Crusader, the Irish Viking. It's interesting because the Irish Viking would have gone off to crusade during the First Crusade. It's also interesting that he was buried in Michan's church, which means he wasn't welcomed in the walls of Dublin. So originally he most likely joined the Crusades because he was leaving the political, he probably was banished and kicked out the first time around, because Michan's church was actually for Ustamen, Irish Vikings and Gaelic men who lived in Dublin and were banished from the walls of Dublin. Banishment was actually a more popular punishment rather than execution. So most likely this Crusader was originally banned from Dublin to start with, banished, and he decided to join the Crusades. There are plenty of reasons why he would have been originally banished. Most likely because there was a sudden change of politics in Dublin during the period of the reform of the Irish Church in Ireland that happened from 1014 onwards with Sitric Silkenbeard. That whole period has various clans and houses taking over Dublin, losing Dublin, retaking and occupying Dublin again. So there's a constant movement of clans. And once the Crusades are called, many people who were unwanted in Dublin because of the constant political change, they just join the crusade. They either join the main crusade itself on the continent over in Normandy, or they go and join the Norwegian crusade and join the Norwegians off to Jerusalem. So that's quite interesting, and most likely the man who was buried in the crypt was originally an Irish Viking who would have been banished from the walls of Dublin, went to Michan's church and would have prayed there, and eventually when he did return, probably most likely lived in that region because he was probably banished from the walls of Dublin itself because of the continuous political changes that were happening. He wasn't the only one in there as well. We also have a thief that's buried in there. We know little of him other than the fact that his hand was removed, which highly indicates that he was a thief, but we're assuming he also may have joined the clergy later on because he's buried in a noble area. So he was probably a member of he was probably a thief originally, went into the clergy, and then eventually was buried within the walls of the church. Because he was buried within the walls, it showed that he eventually worked his way up to the nobility standard. There is also a nun buried inside there that we know little about. And finally, there is also a man who was buried alive inside there. Once again, we know little about him other than the fact he was buried alive. In recent years, when people found his corpse, they dug him up, did some archaeology work on him to find out how he died, and eventually reburied him within the crypt. That's pretty much the information we have. But obviously a massive loss to our history because of the recent political damage that has been caused, or just out of sheer vandalism. It's very hard to tell, but it is definitely a loss that we have received as a community of the Irish medieval community, I suppose, that we've been putting together for the last few years now. Well, for a good while. Regardless, definitely check out the videos that I myself have made on the topic, and also check out the videos that Primal Ireland has made as well. He's done endless amount of work. His work is absolutely fantastic, guys. Definitely check out his work. So it's a shame that people are going in there and trying to vandalize the historical research that's been done in those walls. Anyway, guys, definitely check out the videos to do with this. And other than that, guys, slán go bhaile.